Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Two's Company by Jill Mansell, narrated by Hilary Neville.
Chapter 1. Cass Mandeville, gradually stirring from sleep, stretched out an arm and encountered warm, bare flesh. She gave it a light tap. When the warm, bare flesh in turn shifted, and its owner mumbled, "Okay, okay," Cass raised herself up on one elbow and dropped a playful, nuzzling kiss on the back of her husband's neck. 41 today, she sang quietly. 41 today. Jack, rolling over onto his back, prodded her in the ribs. "I'm 40. "I know, but it doesn't rhyme." Cass prodded him back. "And 40's quite shameful enough. Should an old man like you be lying in bed naked anyway? Are you sure you wouldn't be more comfortable wearing stripy pyjamas and a string vest?" Jack pinched the tender flesh at the top of her thigh. "Great idea. And you can parcel yourself up in one of those frilly flannel nighties with a drawstring round the hem to stop dirty old men like me taking advantage of tender spring chickens like you. Cass, it's my birthday," he wheedled. "I don't ask for much. Just a kiss from my lovely wife and a cup of tea in bed." Cass giggled as he began trailing kisses up her arm. "Is that all?" "Well, toast and marmalade would be nice." The kisses reached her elbow. "Then maybe a bacon and mushroom sandwich or two, and a few newspapers to keep me company?" "I could keep you company." The kisses, having reached her shoulder, abruptly stopped. Jack gave her a sorrowful look. "You'll be too busy making the bacon and mushroom sandwiches. Besides, what would I want with a 39-year-old woman? We older men prefer nubile young beauties, not a day over 23, to tell us how wonderful we are." "How grey, you mean?" Gleefully, Cass ran her fingers along his temples, where the first flecks of silver mingled with the unruly, swept-back black hair that always seemed to need cutting. "Cass, my angel!" Jack was reduced to begging now. "I'm starving. It's still my birthday. Cup of tea, bacon sandwich." "Ah!" In answer, she reached across and seized the alarm clock, giving it a frenzied shake. "Shit! It's stopped! Jack, what's the time?" "Don't tell me we've slept through my whole birthday," he grumbled, seeing no reason to panic. His own watch, an unglamorous but infinitely reliable seconda, rested on the table next to his side of the bed. 9:45. Is that so desperate? It was, actually. With a flash of guilt, Cass remembered that she hadn't quite been able to bring herself to tell him about this morning's interview with the people from High magazine. Having been forced to put them off last week at embarrassingly short notice, because she'd forgotten she was supposed to be presenting the prizes at Sophie's school sports day, she hadn't had the heart to say no when High had suggested rescheduling the visit for this morning. High was one of the numerous magazines cashing in on the phenomenally successful formula initiated by Hello, a formula mocked by many, but devoured by millions. Cass, who read them herself, enjoyed seeing how other people lived. Appearing in them, she had been done by Hello years ago, was both lucrative and painless, because you knew there was no way in the world the saccharine-penned journalist would write a single unflattering comment about you, your family, or your choice in pink and green tartan wallpaper. The drawback was Jack, who thought all such magazines were nauseating beyond belief, an insult to journalism, and completely crappy to boot. Jack had been away working for a month in Australia when the Hello team had interviewed Cass. On his return, she had eased the pain of presenting him with a fait accompli with a new conservatory, already in situ, and paid for with the magazine's ludicrously generous fee. They had made Cass an offer she couldn't refuse. The trouble was, as Jack so acidly pointed out, she never could refuse anyone anything anyway. She would have said yes if they'd offered her 50 pence to swim the channel. "Oh dear," thought Cass, her heart racing slightly at the prospect of having to tell him now. And this time I've said yes for even less than that. What? Watching her, Jack frowned. You're twitching. You look guilty. What is it? Ah. Mum, Dad, someone downstairs to see you, bawled Sophie on the other side of the bedroom door. She sounded as if she was yelling through a mouthful of cornflakes, which was entirely likely. Jack raised his eyebrows. He turned his gaze back to Cass. A strippogram? I'm so old and in need of humiliation. You've got me a strippogram. Cass hesitated, still wondering how best to word it. Sophie, shouted Jack. This someone, is she by any chance wearing stockings and suspenders? I don't know. I haven't looked. Even through the closed door, they could hear their 14-year-old daughter's prosaic sigh. It's possible, I suppose. Do you want me to ask him? It was no good. Cass, as incapable of keeping guests waiting as she was of saying no in the first place, grabbed a pink and white striped satin robe with yellow butterflies on it and threw it on. I'll make the tea. He's a journalist, come to do a piece on us. I got kind of bamboozled into it, she went on hurriedly, as with a loud groan, Jack began to slide down under the duvet. We had a phone-in on the show about the best ways to fundraise, and this sweet girl rang in to say she'd never seen us interviewed in a magazine, so why didn't we do it and donate the fee to charity? My God. Jack had by this time disappeared from view. So I said, what a good idea, because what else could I say on live radio? Cass protested. And within minutes, this editor-in-chief from High was on the phone, pledging 10 grand to the charity of my choice if I took her up on it. The groans increased in volume. And who was the sweet girl? Her secretary? Oh, now that isn't fair. Jack raised his eyebrows in disbelief at his trusting wife's gullibility. Cass was about as streetwise as Bambi. Maybe not, but I'll bet it's true. You're so cynical, Cass protested. That's because I'm so old. He smiled slightly as he hauled himself back into a sitting position. You go ahead, sweetheart. This is your problem. You deal with it. All the more reason for me to stay in bed. Hi. Hello. So sorry to have kept you waiting like this. Gushing and breathless, Cass arrived downstairs to find her visitor waiting in the kitchen. Sophie had been joking. It wasn't a male visitor with transvestite leanings, but a friendly-looking girl in her mid-20s, wearing a dark green fitted jacket and a short red skirt that clashed wonderfully with her streaky orange hair. To make matters even worse than they already were, she was sitting at the kitchen table, which was strewn with the debris of Sophie's haphazard breakfast, together with last night's supper dishes. Belatedly, as usual, Cass remembered that Mrs. Bedford wouldn't be in until midday, because her husband needed her with him to make sure he didn't pass out at the dentist's. Really, it's no problem. The girl rose to her feet, smiled and shook Cass's hand. It's my fault anyway. I'm early. It's a failing of mine. And I'm always hopelessly disorganized, Cass admitted with a sigh. I forgot to set the alarm last night, so I'm afraid we overslept. Oh dear, this is terrible. What must you think of us? Did Sophie even offer you a cup of tea? She was getting into a flap. As she frantically attempted to clear the worst of the mess on the table, the loose sleeve of her dressing gown caught on the handle of the milk jug, shaped like a cow. A ghastly monstrosity given to them for Christmas by Mrs. Bedford. Before Cass knew what was happening, a tidal wave of milk shot up her sleeve and down her front. The cow skidded with its feet in the air across the table. Like lightning, the girl in the smart outfit put out an elegant hand and caught it before it hurtled over the edge. Oh, I say, well held, Cass gasped. Then she gazed down in dismay at the milk dripping down her front. Yuck, just like breastfeeding. Look, why don't you sit down? To her amazement, the girl was taking control of the situation, piling up dirty plates and transferring them briskly to the sink. The kettle was switched on, the milk jug refilled. At this rate, Jack was in danger of having his breakfast cooked for him by someone far more efficient than his own wife. "Sorry, it looks as if it's going to be one of those days." All Cass could do was sit and watch and look suitably appreciative. It seemed safer, somehow. "You've only just woken up. I'm exactly the same." The girl gave her a reassuring grin. "But you've come here to do an interview, and look at the state of this place." "Let me tell you, it makes a nice change." The girl laughed. "All I usually ever get to see are glittering show houses where you're scared to step on the carpet. It's so much more reassuring to know the people you're interviewing are human. Now, milk and sugar for you? Is this strong enough?" Cass, accepting the cup of tea, was almost pathetically grateful. "You're being so kind. I still can't believe Sophie didn't offer to make you one earlier," she fretted. "She's usually quite good." The girl sat down opposite her. "Well, she did ask me if I was wearing stockings and suspenders." Cass groaned and clutched her head. "Oh, God." Over the course of the next 15 minutes, the girl from High, whose name was Imogen Trent, made more tea, helped Cass stack the dishwasher, and regaled her with discreetly scurrilous stories of other celebrities she'd interviewed over the past year. Cass, enchanted by her friendliness and unaffected, down-to-earth manner, forgot all about Jack lording it upstairs, waiting for his breakfast to be brought to him in bed. Only when they had polished off 5 croissants between them, somehow the flaky crumbs didn't plaster themselves around Imogen's mouth as they did hers, was Cass jolted into remembering, by the clunk of more mail than usual being shovelled through the letterbox. Hell! Instant divorce! Hurriedly, she drained her own teacup, refilled it from the pot, and began heaping in the sugar. Jack drank his black and hideously sweet. Imogen grinned. "Can I quote you on that?" "It's Jack's birthday. I was supposed to take this up 20 minutes ago." Even as she spoke, Cass heard the sound of bad-tempered footsteps on the stairs. "Ah," said Imogen, when the kitchen door opened. She didn't seem at all intimidated by the look of irritation Jack shot her. "Mr. Mandeville, many happy returns of the day." In one hand, Jack was clutching an assortment of post. Some were cards, others were evidently bills. With his free hand, he took the cup Cass held towards him and swallowed the lukewarm contents in one go. "Sorry, darling. This is Imogen Trent." Cass silently willed him to smile. "She's been wonderfully understanding about all the mess. Now, what was it you wanted? Bacon and mushrooms?" Jack, who was wearing a pale pink sweatshirt and grey tracksuit bottoms, took his car keys down from the hook on the dresser. "I'm going to the club for a swim. Maybe a game of squash." There wasn't any point protesting. He had clearly made up his mind. "Okay. See you later." Cass signalled apology with her eyes. "You will be here tomorrow afternoon for the photographer, won't you?" Imogen swivelled round in her chair to look at him. Jack, in return, glanced at her skirt. He didn't smile. "No." When he had gone, and Cass had quickly changed into a white t-shirt and jeans, Imogen said, "Right," and prepared to get down to business. She took a small tape recorder from her bag and placed it on the table between them. "Promise me you won't say anything about Jack being stroppy," Cass begged her. "He really isn't like that as a rule. I don't want you to think we're one of those nightmarish couples who only pretend to be crazy about each other." "Please," Imogen protested. "This is High, remember? You and your husband could be flinging grenades across the sitting room at each other, and we'd still say you had the happiest marriage in London. Apart from anything else," she added with a widening smile, "you do have one of the happiest marriages in London. You're famous for it. Wonderful husband, terrific kids, brilliant career. Let's face it, all-round bliss. Well, it's nice of you to say so. Cass hesitated, embarrassed by such an accolade. I suppose I've been very lucky. Come on, don't be modest, chided Imogen. It's a fairy tale thing, isn't it? How many women really and truly have it all? And what's so great, I think, is the fact that people don't resent you for it. They're pleased for you because everyone likes you. She paused, then said, You give them hope. Cass looked amazed. Hope? Yes, think of all your fans. The housewives stuck at home with the kids listening to your show, said Imogen eagerly. The thing is, that's how you were once upon a time. And now you're here, but you haven't let it go to your head. You're still wonderfully natural. So they can listen to you and dream of making a success of their lives, just as you did. She shrugged and concluded brightly. Well, that's my theory. Laughing, Cass said, Is that what you're going to put in the magazine? That kind of thing? Imogen beamed at her. The works, really, I mean. I know most of it, but if you could just run through the early days for me. How you got involved with radio in the first place, and how it escalated from there. That's what the punters love most of all, isn't it? The humble beginnings. Chapter 2. Cass's beginnings hadn't been that humble, but she knew her break into radio had a fairy tale tinge to it. Her first meeting with Jack Mandeville, many years earlier, had been equally romantic. Well, as romantic as it was possible for a meeting on the dodgems between teenagers to be. It was Cass's 15th birthday, and her protective mother had reluctantly allowed her to go to the fair on Wandsworth Common with her friend Annie Murray, provided she didn't speak to any boys. The moment they were out of sight of the house, both girls shortened their skirts by about a foot, by rolling the waistbands over and over like Swiss rolls, and plastered each other with strictly forbidden makeup filched from Annie's older sister. Not surprisingly, upon reaching the common, where the Saturday afternoon fair was in full swing, they found themselves attracting all kinds of attention. In particular, the unsubtle interest of a couple of leather-jacketed biker boys from Walthamstow. Spotty, unwashed, and sorely lacking in the social graces, they weren't at all what Cass and Annie had in mind. Neither did they take rejection well. "Stuck-up little bitches," snarled the taller of the two, who had set his sights on Cass. Her long blonde hair, shining eyes, and heavenly legs were right up his street. "Yuck! Just ignore them!" shrieked Annie, pushing Cass in the direction of the dodgems. "Oh, look at that boy collecting the money. He looks just like Elvis. Quick, you jump into that blue one and I'll have the red. See if you can get him talking. He's dreamy." The bikers, in their fringed leather jackets, had other ideas. Unhappy at being ignored and deciding that the stuck-up bitches needed putting in their place, they leapt into 2 more dodgems and proceeded to batter the living daylights out of Cass's and Annie's cars. With each successive shunt, they jeered and catcalled. Cass, not finding this at all funny, began to feel afraid, but the Elvis lookalike was 40 feet away, chatting up 2 brunettes. In the meantime, she found herself being hammered slowly but surely into a corner. The bikers, by this time having decided to concentrate their joint attentions on her, were making increasingly nasty threats. Help was at hand. The moment the ride finished, even as Cass was wondering if her trembling legs would hold her up, she found herself being lifted out of the car in one smooth movement. A strong hand, clasping hers, left her with no alternative other than to follow her rescuer down the steps, away from the dodgems, and in a fast zigzag through the crowds until they were safely out of sight. "Oh, thank you," Cass gasped, panting for breath as she leaned against the chugging side of a hot dog stand. "I was so scared. You don't think they'll come after us, do you?" Shouldn't think so. The boy, whom she'd never seen before, glanced over her shoulder. His dark eyelashes flickered. "Well, maybe to be on the safe side." Cass, her heart racing, didn't argue when he led her swiftly up the steps of the ghost train. As he searched in his jeans pocket for the money to pay for 2 tickets, she covertly studied her rescuer, whom she guessed to be a year or 2 older than herself. His hair, so dark it was almost black, was quite long and swept back. He had very clear dark brown eyes, a lightly freckled nose and a humorous mouth, the kind that looked as if it was smiling even when it wasn't. He was tall and thin, which Cass also liked. Her last boyfriend had been an inch shorter than she was, and the effort of endlessly trying to make herself look smaller had been exhausting. With a start, she realized how presumptuous she was being. Talk about jumping the gun. Her imagination was running riot, and so far she didn't even know his name. It was Jack, she learned, once they were safely installed on the train. Cass, said Cass, wondering if she could also discover his surname. Annie was sure to ask, since surnames were vital. Was there, after all, any point in even bothering to get to know someone called Winkle or Shufflebottom? Too embarrassing to go out with, Annie bossily maintained, let alone marry. Cass blushed under the cover of darkness and cleared her throat. Cass Ashton. Oh, well, if we're being formal, said Jack lightly. John Marius Frederick Rothschild III. The train chugged along the rickety track and juddered round the first bend. They were enveloped in total blackness, and something that felt like a giant spider's web slid across Cass's face. Rothschild? She gasped. You're kidding. Please don't make a big thing of it. As Jack sighed, an eerie howl echoed in the darkness above their heads. If you're scared, he said matter-of-factly, you can hang on to me. Thanks a bunch, said Annie, when they finally emerged, blinking, into the sunlight. She was leaning against the white wicket fence surrounding the ride and looked very cross indeed. Sorry. Cass experienced a belated paroxysm of guilt. I thought they were only pestering me. Are you okay? Well, alive. Annie wasn't only cross, she was deeply jealous. Trust Cass to get herself rescued, if not by a knight on a white charger, then by an unfairly good-looking boy in a Led Zeppelin t-shirt. Rothschild? Annie screeched, when Cass had proudly introduced him. Oh, come on. We aren't all as gullible as Cass. You aren't as pretty, either. Jack was smiling, but the glint in his dark eyes showed he meant it. Why do you suppose I rescued her and not you? That had been the end of Annie's friendship with Cass. Just as well, Jack airily declared. With friends like that, you'd only end up getting a name for yourself. Besides, you don't need her anymore. You've got me. It had been a typically intense teenage romance. The only untypical aspect was the fact that it hadn't ended. Cass adored Jack, even if his name wasn't really Rothschild, and they spent all their time together. Her mother fretted at first, complaining that Cass should be out having fun instead of tying herself down at such a ridiculously young age. Then, hearing what her daughter's untied school friends were getting up to on wild nights out at the local disco, she shut up. Jack Mandeville was bright, charming and well-mannered, great fun to have around and highly motivated. How could she complain when he helped naturally lazy Cass through her O-levels? As she watched the two of them studying together, out on the newly mowed lawn, revising for the last few exams, Geraldine Ashton realised she had a lot to be grateful for. It was just a shame Jack was only 16. As son-in-law material, in 10 years' time, he would be perfect. She didn't have to wait that long. Continuing to defy the odds, Jack and Cass remained together through the next 2 years. A-levels came and went. Cass grew blonder, more beautiful, and ever more devoted. And Jack, handsomer than ever, won a coveted place to study economics at Cambridge. Cass, less ambitious and without the faintest idea what she wanted to do in terms of a career, ended up half-heartedly studying English at the somewhat less prestigious Bristol Polytechnic. She shared a house with 5 other students in Clifton, hated her course, and suffered appallingly from homesickness. Or, to be more accurate, Jack sickness. Every night, instead of working on essays, Cass wrote long, desolate letters to Jack. Each time he phoned her, she cried so much she could barely speak. At every available opportunity, she either caught the National Express coach to Cambridge or met him halfway in London. "This is hopeless," said Jack, hugging her to him as she spent the evening of her 19th birthday in tears, because it would be at least a month before they could see each other again. He missed Cass just as much as she missed him. The 200 miles separating them were doing neither of them any good at all. Cass wiped her face on the sleeve of his dark blue sweater and sniffed loudly. "I hate Bristol. I hate everyone on my course." She hiccuped miserably. "I'm never going to pass my exams, Jack. I hate it all so much I can't think." With an air of defiance, she added, "And I miss you so much I don't care." "In that case," said Jack, "you'd better tell them you're jacking it in." "Really?" Cass's eyes shone. Her knees sagged with relief. She had spent the last 6 months begging to be allowed to leave, but Jack had always said no. Things would get better in time. "I know what I said." Jack's smile was rueful. "But it didn't work, did it? I think we'd better get married. God, your mother's going to go wild." Cass had never been so happy. Her all-time favourite film was Love Story, where Ally McGraw fell in love with Ryan O'Neill. Now she and Jack were living it for real. They were happier than the two film characters. They were even more in love. And best of all, she had no intention of dying heartbreakingly of leukemia at the end. Chapter 3. So did she? Imogen, who adored love stories, couldn't wait to hear the rest. "Your mother, I mean. Did she go wild?" Cass grinned. "Oh, completely. Although it was more for show than anything. You know, she felt she had to do the 'you're too young and inexperienced' bit. Poor Mum. She kept saying, 'But what about the sexual revolution? This is the 1970s, for heaven's sake.' She adored Jack, but even at the wedding reception, she kept pointing out gorgeous men and hissing in my ear, 'See what you're missing.' But no regrets, obviously." "None." Cass shook her head, her expression dreamy. Then she smiled. "Jack's the only man I've ever slept with, or wanted to sleep with. I suppose we're a bit of a rare breed nowadays. Particularly when you consider the kind of circles you move in." Imogen nodded, impressed. "Anyway, I'm interrupting. Carry on." Cass shrugged. "What can I say? We were poor but nauseatingly happy. I took a waitressing job to help out with the rent, and loved it far more than I'd ever loved college. Not that it lasted very long. A couple of weeks after the wedding, we discovered I was pregnant with Sean. Once he arrived, we were poorer than ever, but it didn't seem to matter. Then, hot on his heels, Cleo turned up, and that was it. I was 21 years old, a housewife, mother of 2, not at all the kind of glittering career my mother had set her heart on for her only daughter. And in the meantime, Jack was working for his degree, building the basis of his own glittering career," Imogen observed dryly. She tilted her head to one side. "Did you ever feel even the tiniest bit of resentment that you were the one who'd had to give everything up?" "No." Cass spoke with simple honesty. "It was what I'd wanted. Jack and I were together, and we had our babies. It didn't even occur to me then that I had given anything up, anything that I might regret, at least. Some people are just natural homemakers." Smiling, Imogen ejected the tiny tape, flipped it over, and started recording the second side. "It must be lovely. I'm not sure I could do it myself." "Ah, you'd be surprised," Cass spoke with enthusiasm. "People talk about being trapped at home with the kids, but there are so many things you can do, even without heaps of money. Well, like getting onto local radio when they have their phone-ins." Imogen, along with the rest of the country, already knew about this. It was how Cass had achieved her initial break into radio, when, as a supposedly typical young housewife and mum...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?